Oh, it's painted.
There we go. Call the Planning and Zoning meeting for the City of Montrose, Wednesday, February 9th, 2022 at 7 p.m. If we could do roll call. Charles Smallwood.
Sylvia Henry.
Catherine Nyberger.
Sam Solars.
Jessica Bonniwell.
Steve Gritman, City Planner.
Michael Sommerfeld.
Okay. And if we could stand to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and one republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Look for motion, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes from December 8th, 2021, Planning
I
Commission.
approve the minutes for 2021 on December 8th.
Second.
Sure. I'm happy to see.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now I'd look for a motion to close the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and open a public hearing.
I make a motion to close the planning and zoning meeting and open up the public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
All right. I'll close the Planning and Zoning meeting at 7:02 and open the public hearing. And turn it over to Mr. Gritman, the city planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commission, the item before you at this hearing is a request for a preliminary plat for property that is a part of a prior subdivision called North Ridge, and this was originally platted and preliminary platted many years ago, and several phases of that project in North Ridge were built, but this one was left as an outlot, and then as the housing market changed, it was basically timed out from a plat approval standpoint. So the applicants tonight are back to reanimate that plat. It's a single-family plat that follows the pattern of the original preliminary plat of North Ridge from a number of years ago. In fact, if you look at the aerial photo, you can see the preliminary grading of the road pattern in that project area. And the roads follow that original pattern, and the lot layout is similar in content as well. I just appreciate the applicant's close reading of my report. If you didn't notice it, I made an error in my lot width citation. I kept saying 75 feet, although I know it's 80, and I was measuring 80, but couldn't get 75 feet out of my head, so it popped up in the report a couple times, so I apologize for that if there was any confusion there. 80 feet is the required width, and the lots do comply with that 80-foot standard as they are required to in the R1 zoning district. The engineer has a lengthy report on the project, and he notes a proposed change in his report from the plat request of a 50-foot street right-of-way to 60 feet. The streets that this project to the north connect to have 50-foot right-of-ways, so the applicant is following the original pattern. Our current code says 60 feet, so that'll be one of the aspects of the plat we need to resolve tonight as part of our discussion. There are a number of other engineering comments that relate primarily to minor tweaks to grading details on individual lots and the typical things that the engineer notices when they look at the engineering plans. The primary planning issue relates to tree preservation and tree replacement. The city's subdivision ordinance has an extensive tree replacement section, and this plat, again, if you notice the aerial, that street kind of runs right through a very heavy stand of trees. And the way the city's tree preservation or replacement code works, basically applicants are allowed to remove 50% of the trees in the area. And the way that's measured is actually by caliper inches of tree width, not total number of trees. So the applicants do a survey of all the trees in the property, identify their species and identify how large they are, and then report that in a summary report. They're allowed to remove, again, 50% of the caliper inches of those trees in the subdivision. And then if they remove more than that, then there's a replacement requirement. So they are required to replace tree girth that is lost. And typically we look to see that replacement happen in the plat as much as possible. In this particular case, the significant amount of tree loss that is occurring as a result of the grading and construction makes it probably impossible to replace the tree count and the tree in this subdivision. There are something upwards of 1,100 caliper inches of trees to replace, which would mean you'd be talking about some 400 trees perhaps try to add around the subdivision. And when you're thinking about 27 lots, 15 trees per lot are just not going to be planted on a residential parcel once you, I mean, maybe that's obvious, but that's the result of this. So the subdivision ordinance has a clause that allows the applicants to plant excess trees elsewhere in the community. And that could be on other private property that they control, or it could be on public property if they strike an agreement with the city in that regard. And in lieu of actual planting, the subdivision ordinance allows for the applicants to pay a fee in lieu of actual tree planting, and then presumably the city would use that fee for maybe forestation in parklands or whatever it may be. So has a very significant impact on this particular plat. As we indicate in the report, there's almost no way to avoid much of the tree loss here. There's just a thick stand of trees that the road runs through, and then by the time you grade out for the homes themselves, and then provide utilities and match grades with surrounding land, many, if not all, of those trees end up being lost. We suggested an option without having a real firm grasp on what the impact of the grading would be, but the homes along the west side of Aspen are shown as lookouts and walkouts, and sometimes the grading for those types of homes result in more grading in the rear yards than maybe a full basement might. And as a result, once you grade, you lose the tree. There's almost no way to save it if you're grading in that area. So we suggested that perhaps there could be some modification of the home style on the west side of Aspen Lane to save more rear yard trees and reduce that replacement requirement. We also suggested that more front yard planting would be possible here. The landscape plan showed one tree planted in each of the front yards, and with 80-foot wide lots, we should be able to plant at least two, and that's our typical subdivision requirement in any case. And there may be other parts of the plat where we can cluster some tree planting and reduce that deficit that the project results in. But with that said, we need to figure out a way to resolve that. I'm not sure we'll be able to do it at the Planning Commission, but if you have a preference for one idea or the other, that would be valuable to know. I'm sure the developers would want to know that, and staff would certainly want to be aware of the Planning Commission's thoughts on that matter. But beyond that, as we said, the plat lays out generally as we expected it to look as part of the original kind of an infill piece of that North Ridge area. And planning staff's recommended approval of the preliminary plat with a handful of conditions, and I'll just run through those quickly for you. Number one, that the applicant works with staff and consultants on amending grading in the plat to further reduce tree loss and reduce then the tenant replacement requirements. Number two, applicant increases replacement planting in accordance with the comments in this report, and I mentioned those front yards and some other locations on the plat that may be suitable. Item three, the applicant provides additional replacement tree planting not possible according to the subdivision, whether that's cash or placement on other properties. Number four, applicant enters into a development agreement securing the various public and private improvements and the established required park dedication. That's a standard development agreement requirement that actually comes at final plat time, but we add the reference here so everyone's aware of that coming requirement. Item five is the applicant provides for and financially secures the tree and lawn planting as a part of plat construction. That's a typical landscape guarantee when that planting is done and the homes are being constructed in the subdivision. Sometimes that security comes from the developer, and sometimes it comes from the builder. And so it kind of depends on the various entities that are participating in the construction, but that's a requirement. Item six is compliant with the requirements of the city engineer regarded to street utility grading and stormwater. And I mentioned the street width, right-of-way width is the primary probably design consideration that the engineer has made in addition to a number of detailed comments. And then finally, any other recommendations of staff or planning commission following the hearing tonight would be added to our recommendation for approval of the plat. So those comments incorporating the engineer's notes, we recommend approval of the plat. We believe it's, as I said, consistent with the expectations and consistent with the R1 standards here for development in this portion of the community. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions?
Oh, I have one question. Are all of the engineering comments to be
Yes.
incorporated into?
Yes.
Yep, that should be, and actually we reference it in our set of conditions, but yep.
Because there are a lot of,
There are
A lot, yeah.
A lot of just, yeah.
Yeah, they note
Details.
a little grading on this lot or that lot, changing in various things, and it's attendant to,
A lot of technical stuff.
yeah, technical reviews of their engineering plan. So it's not uncommon that there are a lot of engineering comments.
well, for a development this size, yeah.
No one else has any questions? I'll open it up. If anyone on the floor has anything to ask or add, if you just step to the podium, give your name and address.
If anybody has anything to add, they can step up to the podium and you just say your name and address and cite what your comments are.
Good evening. My name is Mandy Musta. I live at 622 7th Street North. And I just have a couple questions. One, are there restrictions on the type of homes that are going to be built here? Say, two-story ramblers, split levels, twin homes, and then square footage limitations? Or I would say, I guess, floors and ceilings for that?
There aren't particular design requirements. The zoning ordinance has some specific requirements for minimum building size, and we could certainly ask the applicant what their plans are, but there are no requirements in the code for either ramblers or two stories or whatever it may be. They just have to meet our minimum square footage requirements.
So they can build twin homes here?
They can, oh, I'm sorry, I missed that part of your question. They cannot.
No, there will not be twin
All
homes.
single-family detached.
Single family.
Okay, and are there square footage minimums and maximums on these homes?
No maximums other than the setback requirements for each lot The minimums are in the zoning ordinance. I'd have to look that citation up for you, but
That's okay.
there is a specific minimum size that they have to be.
Okay, and then the other question I have is around, I guess I'm a little concerned with the rate that we're developing right now, given that we don't have safe drinking water for our current residents. So I'm kind of wondering what the board, what are your plans with that? What are your thoughts? I see this as, I know I heard we're in the sixth largest growth, right, for Montrose in the metropolitan area for home prices. However, that's going to slow at some point, and the addition of these homes is going to affect current house values, and I think the water is definitely an issue. That's going to affect home values here too and resale. So I'm really curious about what the plan is for that.
That's probably a good question for the engineer or Public Works. I'm not sure if city administrator has a.
We are working on the water. It is safe to drink. There's just some recommendations regarding the water, and some people are choosing to use filters and stuff, but it is safe to drink by the Minnesota Department of Health standards.
I think the last letter we got said it was not recommended for
If you read the
drinking.
letter again, it does say it is safe to drink. It's
Okay.
just outside of some of the limits that are newly established.
Okay, do we have updated information on what these wells are resulting in for manganese levels?
We are doing testing. You'd have to check with the Public Works Director. He would have those amounts for you.
I think it's a little bit, not to be offensive to anyone here, but it's a little unreasonable and a little irresponsible to not be handling that issue in a community where we are building homes and asking for some. We have young families moving in here, and just to let you know, I'm spending $100 a month on a family of 3 for safe drinking water. I don't consider the water in this town safe for drinking, and I don't interpret the letter that you sent the way that you're interpreting it. And I do think that there needs to be a bigger responsibility taken and some more planning. We've had one communication from you, which I believe we are required to disclose if we try to sell our homes. That's an issue that's not being dealt with by the city currently. That's the end of my conversation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I can respond to that. I'm a layman when it comes to water, but I know living in this community that, to my understanding, if you have a water softener, it handles the manganese problem. And, secondly, this is just a personal opinion. I wouldn't drink the water anywhere. So I wouldn't drink city water without a filter anywhere. So I think if you're drinking city water without a filter, it's pretty safe to say in any community in Minnesota, you're drinking some stuff that's probably not too good for you. So I don't know, and I know the expense to solve this problem is way beyond what our budget is or our community. So I think personally, and I totally understand. I mean, I think drinking water is a very important thing because, like you said, a lot of us have young kids. But personally, I see it as a independent, issue that I have to take care of with my own family. I wouldn't trust the cities anywhere in the state to make sure the water quality is up to what I think it should be for my family. So for a pretty minimal cost, and we have a water filter that takes out everything. And I know from talking to a lot of the neighbors and some other people that know more that just having a water softener eliminates a lot of the manganese issue. That's my understanding, and I could be wrong. I'm often wrong, but that's my understanding.
And what the softener don't take out, the filter will.
Well, the
That's
filter I have
rare.
takes out everything. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What kind do you have?
It's reverse osmosis. I'm not going to drink. I mean, we live in the country. I mean, they're spreading stuff all over these fields. So, I mean, I just think that's something that's it's important to understand. But I mean, I think as a responsible homeowner, I got to make sure my family's drinking clean water.
Clean water.
But I totally understand the issue, and it's something that I think is important to be concerned about.
With all due respect, the issue with the water was heightened enough that you were required to send notification to the residents. That issue is not being addressed. It's not being communicated to the community members. When we purchased this home in this city, we expected drinking water that was adequate. It's not adequate. And I don't necessarily disagree with you that you're going to go to many cities and find problems with drinking water, but that's not an excuse for this community to not be addressing a known issue, to not be communicating that issue to their current residents, and then to be adding homes at the rate that we're adding them when we're not dealing with that issue. A couple of other concerns I have, if you look at communities around, I'm not going to state them because I don't want to state them incorrectly, but there are, in our area, there's many communities that have grown in the past 20 years at a rapid rate. Their sewer systems are being overrun. The amount of water that they can supply to their community for use is being depleted. These are major issues, and we are adding substantial homes. We moved in 2010. We bought our house brand new. We love the community here, but we moved in right when it crashed, right when everything went down. We had empty homes sitting in our community. That's not good for anybody. That's not good for our tax base. It's not good for our property values. It's not good for our communities. And right now, frankly, I'm a little concerned about the rate that we are growing and the cost of our homes and whether that's sustainable. We don't need another 100 homes being built that we can't keep people in. So these are the concerns I have with the rate that we're growing. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Anybody else have any comments?
My name is Alex. I'm at 707 Aspen Lane. I guess I had a little bit of curiosity of, you're adding quite a bit more drainage, water running. I see you're doing a pond, a sediment pond, something like that. Is that what your plan is there?
Yeah, I know the applicant, and I believe his engineers here tonight, they can certainly describe the stormwater plan. There's
Okay.
there's a pond in the kind of north portion of the proposed plat.
I see it there.
Yep.
So, okay. I guess obviously it's going to overflow and continue next to my property here, which I understand is city-owned property on the north side of my house. That floods the way it is without taking on all of, this new water that's going to be brought to its, flow. And the creek behind our house is definitely grown double size in the last 5 years by washing away from, I would assume, the other development, adding water to it. I guess, what are your plans with, what's already existing?
I have to pass that question on to the city engineer. If there's a existing flooding concern,
Yep.
then it would be good to, pardon?
Take a look at that.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. We'll pass that note on to the city engineer and.
I mean, this last year or two has bbeen dry. It has been.
Yeah.
I mean, but it definitely, that creek has grown. It's eroding away behind our house. I noticed that. I see all this extra water coming off the streets that are going to be put in here, and wonder what that's going to do to the lot next to our house now without any attention. I have been maintaining that lot mainly because of snakes. We have millions of snakes there already. I'm sure a lot of residents can concur to that, but without keeping that maintained, it's just wild in our yard.
You're on Aspen, right on the.
707. I am the second to last house.
Okay, so kind of where it starts to curve. Yeah. Okay. We'll bring that with the city engineer. Mention that.
Okay. I mean, that would be my
Record
largest
that.
concern is what is the water going to do. So, thank you.
Thank you.
As far as what Alex just said, I live off of 846 Aspen Lane, and I'm the one that's going to be having this pond right directly behind me. I've already contacted the city engineer about a year and a half ago, and nothing has been done. So I'm wondering what your plans are as far as truly excavating that and knocking that down.
I think we could have probably the applicant's engineer identify specifically what their grading plan is, and maybe that would help all of us understand that a little better. I can't
Sure.
answer the question. I
Well,
don't
and
have that
like you said,
qualification.
you know,
but-
it's been a water issue. I've built the house brand new in 2010. I've been there for 10 years. It's the same issue every single year. That water backs up, and I've already replaced my shed floor once because of water backing up in my backyard. So you adding, again, what Alex just said, adding more of a swamp, I mean, what is that going to do to the back of my yard?
Theoretically, it shouldn't impact it at all. So, but that's one of the engineer's responsibilities when they review the grading plan, is to make sure that stormwater does not rise to a point where it's outside any of the utility and drainage easement areas. So I know that's a very generalized answer. We'd have to have a more specific look at if there's a particular problem. So, and again, just like the prior gentleman mentioned, we will raise that with the engineer to make sure he takes a particular look at that, both for the existing condition as well as any
I guess,
changes.
why has the city engineer not came out and checked that out for over a year and a half? Other than
I can't speak for him, so all I can do is tell you that we will make sure he's aware of it, so.
Steve, is there not a state statute as far as grading goes that has to be met?
Well, yeah, the statute relates primarily, it's a trespass law. Basically, you can't, you have to retain the water within the existing public easements or those that are platted. And if you cause water to flow out of that, you're trespassing on other people's property. So, and again, that's the engineer's review responsibility, is make sure that the stormwater, when it rises to a certain point only to the extent of those easements. And then if we get a big storm, there's supposed to be what they call an emergency overflow, so it's supposed to flow out to the street or to some other location on public property. So, but I will raise that with the engineer, make sure that review is being done. I'm confident that it is, but I'm no engineer, so.
Yeah, number 10 on the Bolton and Mank report is the developer shall provide additional information on catch basins and backyard to show that no flooding of adjacent buildings will occur.
What's her address?
10 on
Is
the,
your address 846 Aspen? And what was your name? Sarah.
846.
708, I think it was.
Pardon?
I think it was 708.
Okay, anyone else? Okay.
There isn't a 708. There isn't a 708.
Oh,
846.
I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing and open the planning and zoning back up.
I'm,
Move to close the public hearing and reopen the planning and zoning.
Okay, second.
okay, second.
All right. At 7:28, I close the public hearing and open the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting back up. Okay. Does anyone have any other inquiries or concerns?
I have a question. Is there an actual creek that runs through this subdivision or very close to it? I know there's a creek branch off of the North Fork of the Crow.
There's a creek that flows, it's actually west of the subdivision, and then to the north of the prior gentleman's house who spoke earlier.
Okay.
So it's near, but not on this property.
Okay.
Where all this water would flow to.
Right, yeah.
What about flooding of the Crow? Will that backflow into that creek? Has it in the past, or has it since anyone has lived in that area?
I would doubt that the crow would have backed into this creek. That would be a pretty, maybe 1965, I guess. I'm not gonna, but,
It did in 1965.
but,
But flood prevention measures have been taken
yes.
since that time.
There's the creek right here.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else?
To answer your question in part at least, when we moved here, I used to work for FEMA. And so first thing I did was look at the floodplain maps that FEMA has for the area, and they're all available online. And the creek is well identified and the floodplain's well identified, going right along that side there. And if you take a look at the retention ponds, the existing retention ponds, they're all engineered with a step down gate for flow from one retention pond to the next. That's all been engineered and in place. Now, I'm going to assume that the engineer to address the next retention pond, that'll be expanded and made into a real retention pond, will have a gating factor going from it to the next and carry that original plan on through. I don't know how else they would do it and, without it. So I think that's what we'll look for, is that the homework, the diligence is done. And,
Well, I experienced the 1965 flood.
yeah,
Our home was flooded,
okay,
and we were on the North Fork.
yeah,
So it can be a vicious
Oh, yes.
no
issue.
question, no question. I mean, it's flat out there and there's a lot of water. Fortunately, we're pretty far away and
Well,
pretty
none of these
upstream.
developments were in 1965, so the engineering has been very complex and very positive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully that will never happen again.
But I would urge, take a look online at the FEMA floodplain maps and it's pretty well documented.
Good. That's good to know.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. I believe it's in the Block 2, the lots 9, 10, 11, no, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, those backyards will basically be on one lot, 637, whatever that address is, 7th Street? What is the drainage plan for that? I mean, the drainage is going right onto that lot.
Just go out the back that way. Come on up.
Zach Weber, Laux. We're at 7200 Hemlock Lane North, Suite 300, Maple Grove, Minnesota 55369. So there'll be a backyard swale. I don't know if you can pull up if you're looking at sheet C3-1, there's a swale that collects all the water and it will force it down to in between lots 7 and 9. There's a storm sewer catch basin which will take it over to the pond. And then there's a emergency overflow between lots 8 and 9 that will bring it across the street and into the pond. And then all those houses have a freeboard, which is a height requirement from the EOF to their first floor or their lowest floor. It would be first floor opening.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, that explains things.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
What's that? Area drains you have homes there? Yeah, there's a catch basin. What'll be is either a 27-inch. Okay. Yeah, they'll be either. I don't know what this. I think this one's concrete, but I've done plastic ones in the past. And that will bring it crossed into the pond.
So
To
this would
answer your earlier question, we have to match rates on the 2, 10, and 100-year event.
to see this
So our
lot here.
pond holds the 100-year event and then slowly releases.
They're going to
it.
have 4 backyards.
That's why it's saying it'll be a
So
swale.
we shouldn't be adding any water,
And this
any
is,
more water than what's
this isn't a
already
home.
going.
No, this is a
Pond, yeah.
It'll slow down in the pond before it goes downstream.
Is he gonna get caught on the mic?
Probably not. Maybe on that mic.
It's necessary to run on the road is, right now, whatever rainfall is probably going
Right, so the existing pond is only.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt, guys. That conversation can be had, but I'd appreciate it if you were at the mic, so,
I can give you a mic.
just so we can capture the recording. So I didn't mean to.
Are there any easements on any of these lots 9, 10, 11, and 12?
Yeah, so each lot has a drainage and utility easement. If you look at sheet C1-2, all those dashed lines are drainage and utility easement. So as you go from 12 to 9, the drainage utility easement gets wider to carry that water down to the catch basin.
So those easements are basically for water flow?
Yes, it's so you don't build anything to block the drainage.
Okay, so somebody couldn't put a shed back there.
No, technically they're not supposed to.
And so they will be aware that there are restrictions, basically, on some of these lots.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
that's important.
The drainage and utility easement is for the city to maintain the drainage going forward. So it's still part of the lot, but the easement gives the city access to that area.
Okay, well, my other question would be this lot that has 4 backyards facing it, would they be able to put a fence there if they so choose to because
On
of the
their lot,
swale?
you're talking about the existing lot or
Yes,
the new lots?
the existing lots.
We're not changing the easement on their lot, so their lot's staying exactly the
So
same.
if they wanted to fence their backyard, they could?
Yeah, they would have to get a permit from the city
Well,
and
yes, of
go
course,
through that process.
ordinances allow.
yeah. In our ordinance, they do allow, we do have a fence ordinance, but does it affect the swale?
No, the swale will be totally on the new property.
Okay.
The 4 properties, 9, 10, 11, and 12, the swale will be completely on their lot.
Well, what if there would be a backup during a heavy rainstorm? Would a sump pump alleviate drainage into the home, or?
Well, it probably would just recycle the water, probably,
Okay,
because that's what the EOF is for. So once that, if there was a major issue with a rainstorm or back-to-back storms, that EOF would bring the water across the street before it got to the houses on that.
but what if, say, someone wanted to put a walkout in a lookout lot? Would you allow that? Because that can cause issues with drainage.
Right, so I think that would be, if we put the house type on each one of these, if you look,
Yeah, I saw all those, yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
yeah, so those are what the house is like stated to be. So if it's a lookout, it's not graded to be a walkout, so I
So
don't,
somebody couldn't build or you wouldn't build a walkout for a client
Right.
on a lookout lot.
I guess that would be more of a question for Jay, but I don't, yeah.
Because it's happened here. It's happened, and it causes issues, and then people have water running into their homes, and then they come to the city to get a permit or permission to sump pump drainage into the street. I just wouldn't want that to be an issue in this new development.
Hi, my name is Jay Rose with LGI Homes. And so with the design of this, part of it is to design the types of homes that are going to be there. Because the types of homes are going to affect the drainage.
Right.
You know, we don't just design the grade slope downhill and then build any house on there, because that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
You know, so the grading plan will indicate what type of house basement works on that. It'll be a walkout or a lookout or a full basement. And when we submit a building permit to the city, part of their review is to review that grading plan to make sure it drains as it was designed.
Right.
You know, that's the big purpose of all this work, and the work that the engineer does is to make something that's going to work in a three-dimensional world. So if a builder comes in with a house type that's different than what the grading plan is, the big question is, okay, how is drainage going to work?
Right.
Not that possibly couldn't change the house type, but it's got to make drainage work, you know, so.
No, it's all very clear on these plans. That's an
Yeah.
excellent plan. I'm not
So-
questioning that. It's just that sometimes
Yeah.
things can be.
Well, it's the old scenario, someone in a custom-built situation, someone picks out the perfect lot they want, and then they have in their mind what house they want, and then they try to shoehorn that particular
Right.
house on that favorite lot, but that doesn't always work.
No.
If they definitely want to walk out, they may have the choice, they may be restricted to this lot, and that lot.
That's
They may
right.
not want that perfect, may not be able to make that house work on that perfect cul-de-sac lot they want, because it's not a walkout lot, so.
Well, a walkout has tremendous advantages for families with young children. And it's always more of a hassle to have a lookout because you have your backyard or side yard comes out onto a porch or a deck or some sort of landing, and you have steps, going down.
And it's the old different strokes, there's advantages and disadvantages to all the different house types, and there's all different types of buyers. And, so, we like to be able to offer options and appeal to, as many people, as many buyers as possible. So, it's nice to have that variety.
But you do not have too many walkouts on this plan. I think there are just 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's not really graded
Or
very well to have a
lookout
lot
or
of
full
walkouts.
basement.
But so those
And
4
that's-
lots that back up to that existing lot, if that was a new subdivision that included that one lot, maybe the swale would have been more evenly distributed and have smaller drainage and utility easement on our side, but because we're kind of coming afterwards, there is a wide drainage and utility easement on our end. And part of that is because kind of we're coming afterwards and we're instructed that the city doesn't want us, and no one wants to negatively impact that existing house. Because that exists, I'm not sure what size drainage and utility easement they have, but it's likely a 5-foot drainage and utility easement and then adding ours to it. Lots of times in a new development, it'll be split evenly, that it'll be 5 on each side or 10 on each side or 15 on each side is typically how it's done, so.
Okay, well, thank you. That's a good explanation.
And in terms of house types, we don't know definitely yet what house plans we're gonna build on this. We have a lot of house plans kind of in the file. we just haven't got to that stage. Today, we had what we call a turnover meeting in another development, and this is a development where the streets are built and the utilities are in, and home construction will be starting this spring, and we've finalized the house plans for that project now. So LGI came into the Minneapolis market 2017. They had 3 communities. Montrose was one of them. So now with LGI being in different communities, kind of expanding some of our house plans. So we're still in the process of kind of designing new plans as we go along here. So that's kind of part of the reason that we're not at the stage yet. Home construction isn't far enough ahead to know today what houses they want to build here. But there's enough plans in the file that, what they'll look at is the grading plan, in the lot sizes and the setbacks, and what we do is we have an engineering company do what we call a lot fit matrix. And based on the setbacks and the types of basements and all the setbacks, it'll say, here's the house plans that you have in your at your disposal in your file. Here's the house plans that would fit on these different lots.
Right. No, I understand that. My main concern was drainage with the basements that you have identified on these properties.
And I'm sorry, did we address that question?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
I really wasn't interested in the design portion. I was interested in the drainage and the basements that would be put or be built on the lots for drainage, proper drainage. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have one. As far as like the tree preservation goes,
That's a tough one.
yeah, it is a tough one. I mean, obviously we'd like to see some put in there.
And and these are good sized lots.
Right.
80-foot wide lots, 10-foot setbacks. But the reality is, there's communities that have less than 10-foot side yard setbacks. But it's really hard to keep, even if the setbacks were 20 feet, that you have 40 feet, it's still kind of hard to save trees in there by the time you build a house, and you got swales between those, either surface swales that carries that water to the front or to the back, or you install a pipe. It's pretty hard if there's trees there. You can't pull the tree out, install a pipe, and put it back,
Right.
So it's really hard within the building pad. You get into a large, 2.5 acre lot, but it's pretty hard by the time you cut the street in the front yard. And then also the reality is, even if you were able to save a tree, if it's within a kind of an area where there's a lot of trees, by the time you take other trees out around it, all of a sudden it's this palm tree,
Right.
Because the sun isn't getting to branches down there. So all of a sudden, what appears to be a desirable tree, when it's standing alone or with one other tree, aren't quite as desirable anymore. So, yeah, it's a tough one because you got to make the drainage work. The drainage has to flow, and that is a factor too. We'll certainly look at house types along there, that one area, but yeah, just changing the basement may not change
Right.
the drainage issue, and both of those, the house and the drainage issue, to the same degree equally affect.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, trees have to come down for progress and stuff like that. But as far as kind of giving back to the community in a whole,
Right.
as far as trying to help, kind of.
And like on this development, it's really, kind of an infill. There's not an opportunity, shift the road over. It's pretty set, but there's the street stubs from the north and the street stub from the south. And that property is exactly that wide that you have a street down the middle and lots on each side. So it isn't like a 40-acre site where you have a little more flexibility,
Right.
the laying out the streets. our LGI is looking at another large development that we're doing, kind of starting concept plan layouts. And that's more of a farm field situation where there's not the tree cover. So, I would definitely be interested in being able to utilize some of that credit on that next project as well.
Yeah, I think, from, a council perspective here, I think, obviously drainage is always an issue when it comes to, any kind of new developments coming in. And then, obviously the trees too, and, being able to kind of give back to, us as a community, and if it's, part of this project or, maybe, a project down the road, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's 2 trees in the front's required, right?
Right.
So I guess we apologize for that, missing that, but yeah, definitely, the 80-foot lots, new construction after the house is in and the driveway's in and and you grade it to how it needs to be, there's certainly room for, at least 2 trees in the front, so. We don't really have a desire on putting trees in the side yard.
Right.
I think that's kind of just asking for trouble, but certainly in the front yards.
Okay.
Well, we also have an ordinance for recreational vehicles that you can park in your front yard. And many homeowners have cut down one tree to make room for a recreational vehicle, which is, questionable as far as our beautiful tree coverage.
There's
They're
no
required
great
to put these
answers.
trees in, and then they come in and cut them down to make room for a recreational vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, it's their property, so.
Yeah, I know, but,
I know what you're saying.
you know,
I know what you're saying.
so trees are important, but how important
Right.
to some people?
Exactly.
I just have one more question in regard to the trees. I'm looking at my GPS here, and it looks to me like there's a whole bunch of trees to the west of where we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, there is.
And I guess my question is, those all wouldn't be coming down, would they?
No,
Like there's
because
a farmer's
that gets
field I
off
can
of our
see that's like to
property.
the west, and then there's trees, and then where I can see where the street would be. I'm just wondering. I guess I'm wondering where the property lines is. Would there still be trees like blocking that view to the farmer's field that's there to the west?
Well, to the west is that creek that Steve was talking about. It's a little bit to the west. So these lots on the west side of our Aspen Lane extension, there'll be more tree removal because those are pretty deep backyards, more tree removal than we'd like to see, but because, we need to take that drainage. From our standpoint, those lots, kind of the good thing is these lots will still have those trees beyond. Right? They're not our property.
Yeah, right.
But it's a relatively small area between our property line and that creek that the future development of that, there's pretty limited. I don't know if there's really enough room, so it does still create maintain, save kind of a green space.
Right. So if those people are looking out their back doors after this project was completed, they would still have a line of trees there. Is that
these
I
lots.
I can't see the creek on here.
We'll still have, a nice
Commissioner
view.
Cuff, the image up here shows where the property line ends, and there's still tree line right behind
It's
it.
just
left of the blue.
kind of right. I see that. Yeah. So there's quite a bit of woods back there.
Isn't that property already approved for development and they're breaking ground in the spring, where you're talking about that tree line?
No,
I don't think so. It looks like
we have no other approved developments at this time.
So 7th Street is not continuing on.
Potentially at some point, but we haven't approved any plans for that.
Okay. So, but I think what you're saying is that you don't have any control over those trees, right? Like, you can develop it and leave it there.
Someone
When
else's
that development
property,
comes
correct.
in, they can be taken right out.
Well, they would be subject to the same tree preservation ordinance that we are. But what I was saying is you can't see on that map completely, but that creek comes down north. What I'm saying, there's not a lot of room between that creek and our west property line. I'm not about to design someone else's property. We don't have all that information, but
Can you just tell where the property line is?
what I guess I will say is that for our lots that back up to there, there's still,
The creek is right in
you
here,
know,
right?
natural
Be 150
tree growth
feet off
behind
that,
that.
so I don't know what.
Who owns that property, do you know?
We're gonna be along the trees back there.
Don't recall.
Is it privately owned
Coming on the other
or
side. The creek is
a
right.
developer?
They can't encroach on that creek.
I mean, it's not city owned.
It's not city-owned, no.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess at this time, I'll be looking for some type of motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the property located in the area known as Outlot A, Northridge 6 Edition.
I'll second that.
Roger?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Carries, oh, I'm sorry.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chair, just for the motion maker, I'm assuming that incorporates the staff recommendations.
Yes. I mean,
Right.
Thank you.
all of the staff and all of the
Assuming all
engineering
the
recommendations,
conditions are met.
Right.
all
Yes.
the conditions. So that has to be put in the motion.
Yep, I'll add that.
Adding it.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Okay, any old business? Updates from Mr. Gritman?
Mr. Chair, Commission, probably just really some more of the same I've been reporting over the last several months is that we continue to meet with a variety of property owner developer interests. So as tonight's applicant indicated, he's working on another project in town, and there are others as well. So tonight was probably our first dipping our toe into the preliminary plat stage. I would expect there will be a lot more forthcoming this year based on the information or interest we've seen. I will also say the EDA is met and is still looking for economic development opportunities. We're not sure the status of the subway project that was approved by the city, so we're kind of trying to chase that down a little bit right now. But beyond that, we're just keeping our eyes and ears open.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, right here at the Community Center at 7 p.m. With that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I will adjourn the meeting at 7:58. Thank you all for coming.